Welcome to Everest Tutoring's Reading Comprehension Sample Exam Walkthrough.
Alright, so now we'll be going through the reading comprehension sample test for GATE, and we'll go through some of the techniques we teach here at Everest. So we'll write our name, Everest Tutoring, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's read this out. First, let's read the questions, right? The second soldier's response in lines 3 to 7. So let's read it out. I was thinking of asking for a transfer back to White Sands, said one of the men slowly. Some of that new fuel they're bringing in makes me real uneasy. Ah, said the other. You're not that extra security talk. You're just letting that extra security talk give you nerves. Sure, it's supposed to be atomic stuff, new, maybe even untested as far as I know. But nuts, you can't get blown up any worse than you can handling that liquid oxygen and peroxide they got at White Sands. In fact, I understand that this stuff isn't half as tricky to pour out as the old stuff. Right? So let's see, lines 3 to 5 is going to be around here. So this means the second soldier's response in lines 3 to 7, is it described as cold? No, not really, because cold means that the person doesn't care. He's unfeeling, emotionless. Is he anxious? No, the second soldier doesn't sound very worried. He sounds very calm, right? He's not defensive as he's not defending anyone. He's not arguing, but he's dismissive. He's trying to tell them that you're worried, but it's really you're worried for no reason, right? That's what the second soldier is talking to the first soldier like. So our answer is D. Okay, so then in lines 1 to 13, the two soldiers, they are, and then he says, yeah, I know. I've seen some of it being poured yesterday into that new big fellow. Fellow has a footnote, right? These little numbers are called footnotes, and then they basically explain what it means. A slang term referring to a large rocket. So, I seen some of it being poured yesterday into that new rocket. They're lining up for tomorrow. But the point is that even if it's easier to pour, none of that fizzing and spitting you get when you leak a drop or two, it's atomic. That's the thing, atomic. What would happen if a White Sands rocket blew? It would be a big bang, sure enough, but it wouldn't blow the whole countryside to bits. But take this new stuff, whew. So the two soldiers are obviously disagreeing, right? But what are they disagreeing about? They're disagreeing about the They are disagreeing about the dangers of using the atomic fuel. Okay? Because let's think about it. While one person says, oh, I don't know, it makes me real uneasy, right? He's feeling uneasy, he's worried about it. The other person is saying, don't worry. You're just letting it give you extra nerves. You're letting the extra security give you extra nerves, but this stuff isn't half as tricky, it isn't half as dangerous, right? So they're disagreeing about the safety risk of using the atomic fuel. Then, yeah, I know, and then the other soldier was silent a moment. Well, he said finally, could be. On the other hand, I heard them say that it is really not half as explosive as the old stuff. That oxygen they use in the original Vikings, the oxygen they use in the original Vikings is name of the fuel used in the older Viking rockets. So now we see some kind of old rockets that are called the Vikings is really dangerous. Will go off quick at any spark, but this new stuff, it won't actually go off until it's touched off after the rocket has gone up a few miles. It's actually hard to blast, and then I understand they ain't sure it'll work, right? So he's explaining how tricky these new rockets are. He doesn't trust them, he doesn't even know if they'll work properly. The other one nodded. Aha. So they say, but you noticed where they moved their outfit, didn't you? They don't want to blow the main fields out of existence by accident, just in case they might be a little wrong. So they invented this red sands layout. I don't even like the name. So now we have red sands and then we have white sands. The soldiers fell silent a while. Robin turned these words over carefully. He had read nothing of any red sands operation, and he remembered nothing of any talk about atomic fuels. In fact, he had understood that the problem was still one they had failed to solve, though the idea was intriguing. In the final paragraph, Robin, what is he? Is he confused and frightened, or he's intrigued, right? He understood the problem, and he didn't understand. He didn't know that they had maybe come up with some potential solutions, right? So from this, we don't think he's confused and frightened. We don't believe he's troubled. We don't believe he's concerned. We think he's surprised because he's intrigued. And then this is how we do the process of elimination. This is how we do our process of elimination. All right. By the end of the passage, the two soldiers they are, let's see, the two soldiers they're talking about how, while one person talks about the new red science project, they're both talking about it, right? They're not angered. They're not really, they wouldn't say they're feeling more optimistic because one person, they both say they don't like this new layout. They don't know what's going on, right? So we wouldn't say they're satisfied either, as they're so confused. That's another process of elimination. As if we look at it, we see that um, they they're so confused as they don't understand why they're using this new fuel. It's actually hard to blast. I don't know. They think that the scientists know that the red sand fuel won't work, right? To them, they are confused. They're not angry. They're not satisfied. They're not optimistic. They're confused. Continuing. All right. Whale sharks. You are scuba diving one day, out in the depths far from the coast, when a large shadowy bulk emerges slowly and silently. Your heart rate increases. As it approaches, it becomes enormous, and then you realize against all hope, from the shape of its tail, that is not a whale, it's a shark. In fact, it's a whale shark, the largest shark on Earth. Let's see. So the main function of the first paragraph, is it to evoke sympathy and concern? No. The word they use is you're really scared, right? They describe the whale shark as being very large, very silent, very menacing. And then they describe your heart rate is increasing. Your heart rate increasing means you're scared, right? And then against all hope, right? This means that you're like, no, this is really bad for me. To them, to the reader, the author is trying to evoke these feelings of this whale shark is too big to conquer. He's too menacing, too large. Okay? So are we trying to do some confusion? No, because he explains exactly it's a whale shark. And then we can see that he isn't trying to get us to be loving of whale sharks. He's trying to get us to admire them but not be loving. But what he is trying to do, he's trying to get us to be excited about the whale shark. So that's another process of elimination. All the terms he used tries to describe this whale shark as being some large, menacing creature we've never even encountered before, making it more exciting to meet one. Strangely, for some people, no other experience will give them more pleasure. Many visitors to Ningaloo Reef off the coast of Western Australia rate a swim with a whale shark as one of the best experiences of my life. Divers can swim right alongside them and admire the beautiful spotted patterning on their skins, which scientists are able to read like human fingerprints. The word strangely suggests a sense of the writer's is not relief, right? If they say let's try to substitute the strangely for the relief. Like he would say, if he's relieved, he would say like thankfully. Thankfully, for some people, no other experience will give them more pleasure. That doesn't really make sense. Envy. He's like envy means a sense of jealousy. This statement doesn't really bring out a sense of the author being jealous. The author isn't jealous. He isn't disapproved. He's surprised about it. He's like, why would they go do this? That's why he uses the word strangely. Strangely means it's unnatural, right? It's unnatural. It's confusing why people would love to go hang out with whale sharks to the writer. Then let's continue. The passage suggests that the scientists are interested in the spotted patterning of whale sharks because, let's see, they are able to read like human fingerprints as well as it being beautiful. So we know it's beautiful and that it can be admired and that it's also extremely unique. Because a fact that everyone watching should know, is that human fingerprints are unique. Every single human has a different human fingerprint, right? So let's see, is it a form of camouflage? That's not why. It can identify individual whale sharks, right? And it doesn't have identical patterns, as every whale shark has a unique pattern, and whale sharks use their spots to confuse prey. Is never mentioned. So we know it's option B. In lines 14 and 15, let's read out this paragraph. We are taught very early on to be fearful of sharks. So the bigger the shark, the bigger our fears. And with good reason. Sharks occupy the top of their food chain in the ocean ecosystem, excluding humans, of course. So it is ironic that the largest member of the shark family should strike the least amount of fear in us. Surprisingly, the world's largest shark does not have the biggest bite either. In fact, it does not hunt at all. Instead, it filter feeds on tiny organisms called plankton and remains safe from other ocean predators simply by being too large to attack. So let's see. He's explaining how, since we're a little kid, we are scared of sharks. We are scared of sharks, but surprisingly, the world's biggest shark isn't actually scary. It doesn't hunt, it doesn't kill humans. It's that they're not, he is surprised not that the whale sharks are big. He's not surprised that they're classified as whales. He's not surprised they're eaten by other predators. He's surprised that they're harmless despite their size. He's basically saying we're scared of sharks because they kill people, right? So the bigger the shark, the more scared we usually are, right? Because sharks occupy the top of the ocean ecosystem and then they eat everything below it. However, the largest member of the shark family, the whale shark, does not actually hunt. So despite it being the biggest shark, which means it should be able to eat everything, it doesn't actually hunt other animals, which is why that writer finds it surprising. And then we continue. But size does not always work in the favor of these gentle giants. Accidental collisions with boats and drifting into fishing nets is very common, and for some fishermen around the world, catching a whale shark is like striking gold. As a result of these and other factors, the number of whale sharks has halved in the last 75 years. In relation to the threat of extinction, the writer considers tourism to being expanding whale shark tourism might help to reverse this threat of extinction. But some argue that unregulated tourism could put whale sharks in even more danger. But on the other hand, the potential economic benefits of whale shark tourism for nearby fishing communities in the Asia Pacific could help to improve conservation of the species and prompt a decline in their being hunted for food. Let's see. In relation to the threat of extinction, the writer considers tourism. He doesn't think it's the only solution. He does think it's a possible solution, right? He doesn't think it's unrealistic because he never mentioned it as being naive or a silly idea. And he never says it's being a counterproductive approach, as while he says some argue that it's bad, he never agrees that it's bad, right? So by process of elimination, our answer must be B. The following figures show various threats to wildlife populations worldwide. In Figure 1, habitat refers only to the kind of environment or place an animal lives in. In Figure 2, terrestrial species refers to land-bound animals, freshwater species to animals that live in rivers, lakes and other inland water areas, and marine species to those in the ocean. So we see that this paragraph is wildlife at risk. And then we see a chart with different types of threats to animal. We have exploitation here, then over here we have habitat degradation. So we have the different types of threats to animals. So let's see. Question 10 begins with, which of the following could best replace exploitation as a label in Figure 1? So what does exploitation of these animals and habitats mean? It doesn't mean abuse, because we're looking at a larger scale. It doesn't mean neglect. We're not harvesting these animals. What we're doing is we're actually overhunting. That's the best thing that could replace exploitation. As exploitation in terms of these animals refers to, overhunting these animals, that we're leading them to extinction. So in question 11, figure 1 and figure 2 suggest that the decrease in wildlife population are most influenced by, let's see, we see the biggest threat is exploitation. That's the biggest threat from figure 1. Then in figure 2, the species that decrease the most are freshwater species. Then let's see. We can see that it isn't the natural changes to habitat, as we know exploitation doesn't really happen in nature. It's when they talk about exploitation in these kind of contexts of animals becoming endangered, it is more often than not related to human activity. Hence, it has to be B. Then, question 12. Which of the following best describes the relationship between figure 1 and figure 2? So, obviously, we can immediately see that this is a distractor. A is a distractor. Figure 2 is obviously not going to be irrelevant to the information in figure 1. Of course, it's not going to contradict each other. They don't explain each other, as figure 2 is about animals specifically declining and figure 1 is about the reasons they decline. So it must be by process of elimination, option B. Then let's read this. Self-driving cars. In a recent survey, 9 Fremantle residents were asked what they thought about self-driving cars being used in Australia. Below are their responses. Person 1 said, "You would have to be stupid to hand over your control of your driving to a mindless computer." Person 2 said, "A lot of people still drive recklessly and use mobile phones while driving. Self-driving cars will eliminate these dangerous practices." Person 3 said, "The disabled, the sick, and the elderly will have more freedom and mobility if they don't have to rely on public transportation or assistance from others to get around." Person 4 said, "People should have the right to choose whether they drive a car themselves or are driven by the car." Person 5 said computers don't get distracted or tired or angry. If a computer controls the car, it will make very quick and accurate calculations to avoid problems. Person 6 said the police will be able to shift their focus from writing speeding tickets to other areas of need. Person 7 said, With a self-driving car, you won't need a driver's license, driving experience, or any special ability to be out on the road." Person 8 said, "Self-driving cars will destroy many jobs in the transportation sector, especially in the freight transportation, which is the truck driving and taxi industries." Person 9 said, "If a self-driving car is programmed to avoid hitting pedestrians, who is at fault if the car swerves and hits a house? The driver, the pedestrians, or maybe it's the car manufacturer's fault?" Now let's look at the questions. Question 13. Which of the following responses elaborates on the point made in response to? Let's see. Point 2. A lot of people A lot of people still drive recklessly and use mobile phones while driving. Self-driving cars will eliminate these practices. Let's see. Is it option 1? Option 1 talks about you'd be stupid to give your driving to a mindless computer. So it's of course against response 2. Response 2 is talking about why we should allow for self-driving cars. So it's not option 1. Option 3, Option 4, sorry. People should have the right whether they drive a car themselves or are driven by a car. Well, this does not go in support of we should have self-driving cars. Option 5. Computers don't get distracted or tired or angry. If a computer controls the car, it will make very quick and accurate calculations to avoid problems. This response is elaborating on the point in response to, is explaining why it's good that we should have self-driving cars. So that's why it must be option C. Then 14. Which of the following responses make a similar argument to response 3? Response 3. The disabled, the sick, and the elderly will have more freedom and mobility if they don't have to rely on public transportation or assistance from others to get around. Let's see. So let's start off from the bottom. Option 7. Without a self-driving car, you won't need a driver's license, driving experience, or any special ability to be out on the road. This talks about how the disabled, the sick, and the elderly will be able to drive if they have self-driving cars. This also talks about how if you don't even have a driver's license or any special ability, you can still drive. So it must be option D. Response 6 implies that self-driving cars will be the police will be able to shift their focus from writing speeding tickets to other areas of need. So it's in support of it. Let's see. It doesn't say that dislike because, of course, the police will like it as the police don't have to. They can shift their focus away from speeding tickets to more important areas of need. Doesn't mean that they're safer. Sorry. It does
Sorry, it does mean that they're safer as police can shift their focus from writing speeding tickets to other areas of need, meaning we have less speeding and hence the cars must be safer. Question 16. Responses 6 and 8 each suggest that the self-driving cars will be, let's see, response 6 is about the police will shift their focus from writing speeding tickets to other areas of need, so it's a positive. Then response 8, self-driving cars will destroy many jobs in the transportation sector, especially in the freight transport industry, so this is a negative, while this is a positive. It shows that it will have an impact on on society beyond road safety, as it shows both positive effects and negative effects beyond just road safety. All right, response 9. If a self-driving car is programmed to avoid hitting pedestrians, who is at fault if the car swerves and hits a house? The driver, the pedestrian, or maybe it's the car manufacturer's fault? This does not suggest a human control. It does not suggest for more protective road barriers, nor safety technology. This response is suggesting how we need more well-defined rules so that we can see possible scenarios and we can see where the responsibility of a car crash will fall. Hence, it must be option D. Next, the mountain climb. David threw himself on the grass and rolled in it. It was warm and soft and sweet, smelling. It soothed away the hurt of his aching muscles and the sting of his scratches. He rolled over on his back and cushioned his head in his hands. The sky seemed to be slipping along overhead like a broad blue river. The breeze ruffled his hair and whispered. The bushes murmured and gossiped to each other. Even the sunlight seemed to hum to him as it laid warm hands on his face. But there was another sound which now and then rose above these murmurs. Then it would fade and be drowned out by the breeze. Hard to say why, but it just did not seem to fit there. David propped himself up on his elbows and listened more intently. The sound faded. He had been imagining it. No, he had not been imagining it. It was again. He sat up. Now he noticed that the ledge was divided by a thicket, which grew from the inner side to the outer. The noise, whatever it was, came from the other side of the thicket. David's curiosity was aroused. The noise did not sound dangerous, but well, he had never been up a mountain before, and there was no telling what he might find. He dropped into a crouch and crept silently up to the tangle of bushes. His heart began to pound, and he swallowed to relieve the dryness in his throat. The noise was much more distinct now, and it sounded yes, not only sounded like, but was someone talking to himself. Who could it possibly be? Well, there was only one way to find out. He dropped down on his stomach and carefully began to worm his way under the thicket. There were vines too, and some prickly things like thistles, which had to be pushed out of the way without allowing their leaves to rustle. He progressed by inches, pushing with his toes, pulling with his fingertips, wriggling with the rest of his body. At last he could see the light breaking through the foliage in front of him. He was nearing the other side. A bunch of leaves hung out before his face. He hesitated, then pushed them aside gently, slowly, and peered out. He thought his heart would stop. There stood an enormous bird. Which of the following describes David in lines 1 to 6? So this is lines 1 to 6. We see that he's engrossed. Engrossed means that he's engulfed by it. He's spending all his time in the environment. He is wholly engaged with it, which is what David seems to be in the lines 1 to 6. Then question 19. The noise described by David 7 in lines 7 to 11 is best described as. So 7 to 11 is here, but there was another sound, which now and then rose above the murmurs. Then it would fade and be drowned out by the breeze. So we see he's got a sense of he can't really put his finger on it. It keeps coming, then it keeps going. But it just did not seem to fit there. Then we can see that the sound faded, but then it came back again. And then we see that this noise keeps coming up and up. So we see that this noise is intermittent and penetrating. Intermittent means is not often and it happens periodically. Penetrating means it penetrates through David's thoughts and gets his attention straight away. And gets his attention. Then in lines 1 to 13, David is initially, we can see that it's not that he's overcome, he's not proud, he's absorbed by how he feels. He spends all his time thinking and then he's alert as he studies his surroundings. Question 21. David pushed away the vines and thistles without allowing the leaves to rustle. Let's see, without allowing the leaves to rustle in line 23. That is here. We can see that he's doing this because he doesn't want to disturb the sound that he's observing. He wants to observe it without drawing attention to himself. Hence, it must be option A. In question 22, in the passage as a whole, David is best described as, it's not that he's absent-minded, as he's very alert to his surroundings. He's not over-anxious. He's not fearless, as he seems to have fear in some situations. He's inquisitive. This means that he's investigative. Investigative. He's curious, which is what David is described as he investigates the noise. Then we have this, a table showing the changes to the Australia as it evolved. Which one of the following statements best describes the process shown in the maps? In 1788, the boundaries of the future colonies have been decided. 1788, all we have is New South Wales. We do not have WA, which means the future colonies had not been decided. Once colonies were established, their boundaries remain unchanged. Let's see. New South Wales was half Australia here, and then already here, South Australia became part of New South Wales. I mean, sorry, it took away from New South Wales, so the boundaries do not remain unchanged. Most of the colonies gave up some of their territory to New South Wales. Well, that's not true because New South Wales actually gave up their territory to other places like South Australia, then they gave it to Victoria, then they gave it to Queensland. This means it's not C, and hence it must be option D. Question 24. Which one of the following was proclaimed a colony in the same year that its capital city was founded? Let's see. The colony of New South Wales is established. Then in 1829, Western Australia is proclaimed a colony. And then in 1829, Perth is established, which means WA must be that place. Then question 25. The purpose of down diagonal shading in map 6 is to show that in 1862, Queensland, let's see. The down diagonal shading is to try to separate it from the other areas as Queensland grew. See how Queensland grew in this area there? That means it must be 25A as the boundaries were re-established. Map 6 and 7 show that in 1863 the area now known as Northern Territory was, until in 1863 Northern Territory is here, and that part is not, it was South Australia. And then that means it was governed from, sorry, Northern Territory is here, and then map 6 and 7. Map 6 is here, and it shows that it's part of New South Wales, which means that it must have been governed from Sydney. Question 27. Which of the following shows how the colony of South Australia increased or decreased in size in the period 1836 to 1911? In 1836, South Australia, let's see, 1836 is here. South Australia is proclaimed as a colony, which means it grew, which is why it can't be B or A as it grew. Sorry, in 1861. Let's see, 1861, South Australia, the western boundary of South Australia is extended, meaning it must have grown. So during 1861, it can't have decreased. So it has to be C or D. Then during 1863, let's see, 1863, the Northern Territory is added to South Australia, hence it's getting larger, hence it can't be C, making it option D by process of elimination. Then Perth Canyon. Did you know that not far from Perth is a canyon that is around the same length as the Grand Canyon, but twice as deep? The Perth Canyon is a submarine canyon and is often overlooked because it's underwater. Scientists know it was once part of the Swan River, the same river that flows through Perth today. Millions of years ago, when the sea levels were much lower, the flow of the river towards the sea cut into the rock to form the deep canyon. Although scientists have not known about the canyon for a long time, they have not known its exact size and shape or much about the variety of sea life and plants living in it. Unlike deep-sea trenches, submarine canyons are located on the slopes of continental shores, which are the parts of the landmass that extend underwater from the edges of a continent or island. There are many submarine canyons around the world, but not all of them have been explored. Scientists have recently been mapping the Perth Canyon to try and find out exactly how large it is. During this mapping, they have discovered several interesting features, including the form of an ancient waterfall 12 times higher than the Niagara Falls in North America. In addition, in some places, the canyon is more than 4 kilometers deep. At such a depth, the pressure is very high, which means it is unreachable by humans unless they travel there in a specifically designed vehicle. The scientists use a remotely operated vehicle called an ROV fitted with cameras and lights. There is no natural light in the deep ocean to do their exploring for them. This vehicle takes videos and photos and has sent the scientists images of many different types of sea life and underwater plant species, some which have never been seen before. The scientists describe the Perth Canyon as a global diversity hotspot. This means there is a greater variety of species living in the area compared with other parts of the ocean. The shape of the canyon funnels water that is rich in nutrients upwards from the lower, deeper parts of the ocean toward the surface, attracting many other sea animals. Pygmy blue whales like to feed at the rims of the abyss. The sperm whale and the humpback whale also visit the area to forage for food during their annual migration across the oceans. Question 28. The passage suggests that in comparison to the Grand Canyon, the Perth Canyon is, the Perth Canyon it is the same length as the Grand Canyon but twice as deep, meaning that it is way bigger. So it must be A. Lines 3 to 6 imply that the Submarine Canyon, lines 3 to 6. Scientists know that it was once part of the Swan River, the same river that flows through Perth today. Millions of years ago, when the sea levels were much lower, the flow of the river towards the sea cut into the rock to form a deep canyon. That means it has not always been covered by sea, as the sea levels were much lower back in the day. It is not still being eroded, and it was mostly above the sea, as we see that the river must have cut through the rock to form the canyon. Question 30. The comparison to Niagara Falls is included in the description mainly to, let's see, an ancient waterfall 12 times higher than Niagara Falls in Northern America. It is to provide a known scale for comparison, as everyone knows the Niagara Falls. It is a very common waterfall. Question 31. The Perth Canyon is described as a global diversity hotspot in line 23 because line 23 is here. This means that there is a greater variety of species living in the area compared with other parts of the ocean. It is not because there is extreme temperature. It is not because it is receiving more scientific attention. It is not because it is explored by scientists who want to study marine plants and animals. It's because it has more life than other parts of the ocean, which is what it says here. It has a variety of species living in the area compared with other parts of the ocean. Then, 32. Which of the following statements is consistent with the information in the passage? Pygmy blue whales like to feed at the rims of the abyss in line 27. Line 27 is here. Pygmy blue whales like to feed at the rims of the abyss. The sperm whale and the humpback whale also like to forage for food during the annual migration across the oceans. Let's see the sentence before. The shape The shape of the canyon funnels water that is rich in nutrients upwards from the lower, deeper parts of the ocean toward the surface, attracting many other sea animals, and then it mentions the pygmy whales. Hence, it's not because there's less competition, as it mentions other whale species feeding there. It's not because they are vulnerable, it is not because there's only place they can find food, it's because they can find food that would otherwise be too deep to reach, as they have these funnels which bring food upwards. Then we have this text, failure quotes. Quote 1, we are all failures, at least the best of us are. Quote 2, success is often achieved by those who don't know that failure is inevitable. Quote 3, I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Which of the following best reflects quotation 1? Quotation 1, we are all failures, at least the best of us are. It is not because failure brings us together, it is because failure helps us to become better people. As failure makes us the best of us are failures. Hence, failure must make us better people. Then, 34. Which of the following sayings is most closely related to quotation 2? Quotation 2. Success is often achieved by those who don't know that failure is inevitable. This means that, success is often achieved by those who don't know that failure is inevitable. See, the don't know makes it seem ignorant. Hence, ignorance is bliss, making it option A. Final question. Quotation 3 is most likely intended to be, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. It is not self-pitying. It doesn't sound angry. He's trying to make a joke. He's trying to sound mildly humorous. So, that is the reading section done. I hope it was some help for you guys, and good luck for your test on Saturday. And remember, we will go through more content at Everest Tutoring. So, good luck for your test on Saturday. I hope to see you guys here.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this from Everest Tutoring.